In today's video, I'm going to be talking about how Christians can own and use guns and still follow Jesus. Alrighty. Welcome to another episode of Coffee Talk. It's a beautiful day out today, and I wanted to get into a subject that is a contentious one, that's for sure. How in the world can Christians who are supposed to be pacifists, protectors of life, be morally able to own and carry and be willing to use a firearm? So I thought I'd break it down and go back to the source, Scripture, as to how that is possible. I've always known this to be true myself, and I've got a few scriptures for you today that might surprise you. First scripture I wanted to reference is from Exodus chapter 22, verse 2. If a thief is caught in the act of breaking into a house and is struck and killed in the process, the person who killed the thief is not guilty of murder. I could just stop the video right here, and that's all we need. That's pretty cut and dry right there as to God's stance on what the difference is between murder and self-defense. There's a pretty clear delineation right here showing exactly the difference. Murder being senseless taking of life or vengeful taking of life. This being clearly self-defense. And now that is from the Old Testament. And some people like to dismiss anything in the Old Testament as being irrelevant. But I say to you, let's turn to the New Testament and go to Luke chapter 22, verse 36. Luke 22, 36. This one's popular in the gun community. This is, I didn't know about this one, but apparently online at least, this seems to be a popular scripture referenced a lot when talking about whether or not you're allowed to carry weapons with you. Now I'm going to start at verse 35. This is Jesus talking to his disciples about getting ready to travel out into the world to preach the gospel. Jesus says and asks them, "When I sent you out to preach the good news and you did not have money, a traveler's bag, or extra clothing, did you need anything?" "No," they replied. And now here's the verse 36. "But now," he said, "take your money and a traveler's bag, and if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one with an exclamation point. For the time has come for this prophecy about me to be fulfilled. He was counted among the rebels. Yes, everything written about me in the prophets will come true." Now, it's right there. Jesus himself telling his disciples to sell their cloak to be able to afford to buy a sword to carry with them. Now, you know, in other, I forget which scripture it is, but there's other scriptures in the Bible that talk about abstaining from even the appearance of evil. And so if Jesus himself is commanding his disciples to sell a necessary item, a cloak is pretty important back then, to sell a necessary item to be able to have a sword with them when they are going out to preach the good news, that's pretty telling that the mere concept of carrying a firearm, owning one, and carrying it is not a sin. And not even in the slightest. Jesus himself is commanding his disciples to do it. That's pretty clear right there. I was pretty shocked to discover a scripture where Jesus is telling his disciples to carry swords with them. So there's not an example of Jesus commanding them to use the swords in self-defense. So, and obviously the disciples go on to be martyred in a lot of ways. There's also people who think that Jesus knew that the Roman Empire would need to classify them as revolutionists to be able to then be crucified. So by carrying swords with them, Jesus was probably knowing that would aid in the fact of fulfilling his purpose of being arrested and crucified. So there's a lot of differing opinion on this, but I mean, from an overall perspective, again, looking at taking individual scriptures, comparing them to other scriptures, and knowing the overall gist of the Bible, it is the onus is on us to protect and preserve life at all costs whenever we can. But if you are defending yourself or defending the innocent, defending your family from an imminent threat, you are not guilty of committing murder when doing so. Not to mention all the references to God commanding David and others to go into battle and to fight war in the Old Testament. I mean, that right there is involving plenty of killing. That's not, that's being commanded by God to do. So that's not, killing is a general term, whereas murder and self-defense and fighting in war are all in scripture classified as different items. It's pretty cut and dry. Murder, vengefulness, all bad, all not permitted, all basically what we get as a culture from in our society today comes from these scriptures on why that is bad. But when it comes to self-defense, scripture right there, pretty cut and dry on what God thinks about defending your family. Oh, that's good coffee. Ironically, this is Black Rifle coffee. But all right, this has been another episode of Coffee Talk out here on the Hopeful Homestead in my little tiny cabin on wheels. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Let me know if there's any other scriptures that I may have missed that support this as well. And I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys.